All right, we are ready to go here. It's February 19th, and we're deep into the second month of 2020 here. All right, so anyway, last week we had our additional reseller call, and for those of you that were on there, that was really cool. Um, it stirred up a lot of questions, a lot of business. It was awesome. So anyway, thank you guys for being on there. Uh, Today is a off day. I've got my seminar going tomorrow and Friday, so I had to move the normal call to today. So I apologize for the late notice on that, but we mentioned that on last week's call. All right. So anybody got anything you want to address for today? All right. If so, go ahead and hop out and ask away. But what I wanted to address was one of the big things that causes people frustration and causes them to want to actually throw in the towel on marketing altogether, and it's failure. And what happens is, you spend all this time, you spend all this money, and you start running ads, and it's just out of sequence. But what happens is ultimately you run ads, you spend money, it doesn't work, you feel like a failure, and you're in the hole because you put money out and it didn't come back. And that is the biggest problem to marketing campaigns, and more than the campaign itself, but the people behind it, the ones putting it together. The biggest thing I see, the biggest failure I see, or the biggest challenge, or whatever you want to call it, the problem is underestimating what it's going to take to actually make a sale. Everybody thinks that the world is just going to want to buy their stuff, and it's just not true. You have to make them want to buy your stuff to get them to make a sale. So that's like, of all the things that I've seen throughout the years, that's the biggest thing that just kills people, and it just deflates their whole human spirit, if you want to call it that. Um, but it does. It's underestimating the job at hand of closing a sale. You know, it's shortcutting it. It's running ads before you're actually ready, and thinking the thing through. And I've equated the sales process many times to dating. You can't make too big of a jump or you get denied. And it's the same thing. The only problem is, in the real world, denial isn't so bad in the real world as it is online, because in the online world, it's flat out game over. You get denied in the online world, they're gone. There's no getting them back. In the real world, in your face to face, whether whether this is dating or sales, a salesperson sitting face to face with somebody, they have the ability to right the wrong. Like, if they say something that doesn't resonate with the other person, they can see it in the body language, and they immediately can adjust. Like, same thing with dating. If you ask a question and you see hesitation, or you see them back up, you're like, oh shit, too big of an ask. And you have the ability to fix it, but we don't have that ability online. It's a very cagey game. So that is just one of the things. You've got to have a process to take people through and lead them to a sale. And if you don't, it's just going to be very expensive when you get to running ads, and that's not really what anybody wants. So another thing is, everything that you do needs to be based around marketing. If people are spending time with you and you're not leading them forward and you're not helping them, they're only going to spend so much time, and then they're going to be off to someone else. Someone's going to help them. So, if you're doing stuff on like webinars, if you're doing sequences where you're putting people in and inviting them back multiple times, each time that you have that, like let's say you've got 4 of them in a row. Let's say you've got a webinar series of 4 different webinars, and you're not going to make your big sale till the end. What you need to do is you need to make sure that they come to all 4 of the webinars. So unless you're giving them an actionable piece in each one that's going to build desire for the next one, chances are you're going to spend all that money to get them into the first one, and you're never going to get them to the one where you actually have an offer for them. So making offers, making small bite-sized offers along the way, they call that tripwires. You know, if you're not doing tripwires, if you don't have those small things in process to change the relationship, you have to change the relationship from a browser to a buyer, to a customer, even if it's $1 sale. Like if you look at all these guys like Frank Kern, Brendan Burchard, these guys do millions and millions of dollars in sales, but watch what they do. Watch how they do it. They're very methodical about it. I'm sure you've seen the free book offer. You know, they offer you the free book, and they don't have the intention of you reading the book. That's not their intention. Their intention is to change you from a browser into a buyer. So that's the goal, that's the intention of it. So by doing that, they've changed that relationship. And by changing that relationship, bigger and bigger sales in the sales process become easier and easier. So when you get down to the final straw and you're going to make your big offer at the very end of your sequence, they're going to be much more likely to accept the offer. You know, you've got to do all the 4 key components in there. By grabbing their attention, that's what's going to get them into the sequence to begin with. And then if, let's say, you know, back to the 4-step sequence, if you're going to have them go through 4 things and you're going to be bringing them back, you've got to give them small actionable things in each step of that sequence, so they want to come to the next one and they want to come to the next one. If there's small things that you can sell them in the process, that change in that relationship is enormous when it comes to your conversion on the other end when you sell your big item. So that's going to be, engineering that into your sales process is going to be a key. So, you know, back to looking at that free book offer, you know, what is that? Why does that work? It's changing the relationship. It's a free book, but you had to pay for the shipping. You literally had to take your credit card out and you had to pay the whatever it is, $4.95 or $7.95, whatever it is. And it's posed as, it's a give and take. It's like, hey, I have this free book. I would love to give it to you. There's no charge at all. I'm not making a dime on this. If you're willing to pay the shipping, I'll ship it to you. I'll send it to you. Even though it was free and it was posed as free, they had to pay something. It was a whole thing. They did that. Their whole engineering behind that was to shift to a buyer, was shift a browser to a buyer, and posed it. They wrapped it in the blanket of free. So they weren't paying for the book. They were getting the book free. You know, everybody likes a good deal. And it's a reasonable connection to say, well, you know, the book's free, but you know, you don't expect me to pay the shipping to get it to you, do you? So if you you cover the shipping, I'll cover the cost of the book. It's a win-win on both sides. And you've changed the relationship. So it was huge. It wasn't huge dollars, but it was a huge momentous step into converting that person into bigger, longer term sales. So if you're not doing that, if you're not engineering that kind of thing into the front end of your campaigns, you should work on that. You should look at that as a serious objective to push to the front of the line in your scheduling, in your calendar. That's going to be really really important. And again, it depends on what you're selling, how much you're selling it for. Is it a recurring sale? Is it, is it long term? Is it one time? Uh, None of you should be doing one-time sales. If you're doing a one-time sale, that's kind of like a job. You're going to have to just keep making them and making them and making them. Um, so anyway, you always, even if you only offer one thing, you still shouldn't be focused on a single sale and then leave it at that. Back to the whole maternity dress thing. Once that cycle's over, the timeline starts over. There's something else that could be sold to that person. So always keep that stuff in mind. Keep the lifetime value of somebody it can be enormous. It can be absolutely a game changer in your business. So Russ, I see you're unmuted. Do you have a question there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Could you kind of gear that a little bit towards people that have e-commerce stores,
Sure.
not just information products?
Sure, absolutely. It's the same thing. Like in an e-commerce store, you could potentially have big items for sale, you could have small items for sale. It's kind of, if you were just focused on a small item sale, it's really hard to spend money to buy traffic to make that game profitable. So the idea of changing the relationship, especially in an e-commerce store, because typically in an e-commerce store, when you make a purchase, you're actually creating an account in the store. So when you come back to buy another thing, you already have an account. A lot of times they've even stored your credit card information, so it's a one-click checkout. Like, how easy is Amazon? I'm sure you guys have all bought stuff on Amazon. How easy is it? How easy do they make it for you to do a second sale? You pick the item, you say, yeah, that's the credit card I want to use. Yeah, that's my shipping address. Boom, send it. And then the damn thing shows up the next day.
I'm talking about when a customer comes to your website to buy a product or look at a product the first time and they don't buy it. Like what ideas do you have for the
Gotcha.
tripwires there?
Gotcha. Well, sometimes, there's some situations where a tripwire just doesn't apply. Now, if somebody's coming and they buy or they don't buy, the best thing that you could do is retarget them. Like if you're doing a commerce store and you don't really have, the ability to sliver off a tripwire product, then retargeting and following them is going to be your most effective way to do that. Another thing, offering free stuff, just because you can't sell them a tripwire doesn't mean that you can't get them into a marketing sequence and build their demand and desire for your product. If let's say you've got a fairly expensive product and that is the product, there's no tripwire for it, and you have a person that comes on and they look at it and they're not ready to buy it, you have two things that you should really be focused on, and both of them have to do with follow-up. Whether it's retargeting, following them around with the ad, or following them around with email, getting them to opt in for something. Like, especially on big purchases, if you have an e-commerce store and you're going to have a large ticket item that's for sale in there, and this doesn't have to be like, tens of thousands of dollars, it could be a $500 thing. If you've got something like that where it's not just a no-brainer, it's not, okay, yeah, it's $7, let's get it or not. If there's a buying decision to be made, you want to be part of the follow-up process. You want to be in their head over the next few weeks while that buying decision is rattling around in their head before they make it. So offering a free giveaway there, like, if somebody's going to make a big decision, even if it's a $500 decision, for some people, that's a big decision. If they've got that big decision to be made, in their mind, that's a problem. That's a hurdle. That's a challenge. That's something that they have to deal with. So if you could help them, that's something that would be very intriguing for them. Like, let's say I use the example of life insurance. It's a very dull, boring product. Nobody wants it, but we want to take care of our loved ones. So it's one of those things. It's pretty dry, it's pretty boring. But if someone is in the buying pattern, if they're in the buying cycle and they know that's on their radar, the salesperson, their job is to move them down the line and get them to actually say yes. In the process, once they're alerted to it, they're activated to this thing and it's on their mind. Even though they're not ready to buy it right now, that cycle is going on in their head. There's things that are happening in their brain that they're considering. They're wondering. They're like, am I doing the right thing? There's a lot of conversations going on. So tapping into that and figuring out what they're thinking is really key in creating a good lead magnet. So generally what's rattling around is their unknowledge. They don't know the answers. So if you can help them, educate them how to buy this product, what to be wary of, what are the pitfalls, what do you want to avoid in making this purchase, that's the kind of thing they're like, oh yeah, tell me more about that. Like if you say there's three big things you need to know about buying life insurance that could be the difference between your family getting taken well care of and them having an absolute nightmare because of the bad choice you made, that's going to be intriguing for them. That gives you the ability to set what I call buying criteria. You're actually teaching them how to purchase this type of a product. And it gives you the ability to set yourself up as being the only option. When you have the ability to set the buying criteria, you're basically teaching them how to shop. So when they go out and they price shop, they're looking for the certain things that you told them were important. And if you set those up properly, you can set those to where all roads lead back to you. Like if they go to another guy, they're like, oh, they start asking questions. And as they're getting the answers, they're not matching up in their head to what you told them was right. So they're silently going to have objections and a reluctance to listen to that person any further. So that's a lot of the stuff that goes into that. There's a lot of psychology behind selling, no matter how you slice it. But it's always about a process, and it's always about bite-sized steps to get up the ladder to wherever it is. So if you can sell them a small thing, you make a monumental move forward by changing the relationship. If you can't sell them something, you can still change the relationship by educating them. So you basically have those are kind of the two main tools in the tool belt to move them down the line. So Russ, does that kind of get you where you needed to go, or was there more specifics?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, cool. All right, Big Mick, you got a question here. Hop on.
Yeah, I was wondering, do you have any tool that you might recommend for mining like contact information, like emails and addresses and stuff like that from like a directory?
Oh, I don't know out of directories specifically. There's a lot of tools that will they'll scour the internet, they'll scrape Google, they'll do that kind of stuff for getting that.
I'm looking for a specific website because I have access to this website that is a bunch of different business people on it.
Okay.
To hit up. So I was wanting to mine that information off of there to be able to put it in a mass email kind of system.
Gotcha. There is a tool now that I think about it. It's called ScrapeBox.
ScrapeBox. Okay.
ScrapeBox is one of the old black hat tools that we used to use for all kinds of diabolical stuff. And it will do just that. You can give it a URL and it can scrape information specifically off of that URL, anything that's found on any of the sub pages, all of that.
Oh, and it's $100. Okay.
Yeah, it's a paid tool, but it'll do all kinds of data mining and stuff. So it's a really cool tool. I've I have a license for it. I haven't looked at it in probably, geez, probably over 5 years. I'd have to dig up and see if I could even find my old license for it. Uh,
Okay.
but I know it's still a widely used tool, and it's a really good tool for that kind of stuff. It's very
Yeah, it looks like he updated the website and everything, so it looks like it's still pretty active.
yeah, yeah. No, that's an active tool in the industry. It's a powerhouse.
This says latest version January 16th, 2020. So I think they're updating it.
Yeah, yeah. No, those guys are very active in the black hat side of the SEO community, so they're on it.
Okay.
One thing you want to be careful of, though, when you're doing that kind of activity, when you're scraping email addresses and bulk sending mail, you fall into the spam category, no matter how you slice it. And you can get yourself in a lot of trouble doing that.
Okay.
Not only from the ISPs, like getting your IP blocked. You can you can create a bad reputation for your domain. And if you do that, what happens is when you go to try and communicate with the rest of your audience, like you could have customers you could not get mail to because your mail server now has a bad reputation.
Okay.
That's the least of the problems. The worst of them is it's basically communications laws. There's actual laws in place now that if they prove that you are spamming unsolicited bulk mail, they can actually fine you $1,500 per event, which that could add up if you're sending to thousands of people. So if you want to do bulk email, it's a good thing to do. It works, but it's got its risks, it's got its limitations, and you're probably better off to outsource that to somebody offshore. And the other thing that you want to do in conjunction with that is not only offsource it or outsource it to them, but also put it on a different domain. Use it for a lead generation source only. Generate the leads on the other domain. It's almost like creating a throwaway domain. So when they're doing the campaign for you, have them do it on something that's not attached to you. So it's just strictly a lead generation. Then you can get people to opt in, then you can move them over, and you're basically just moving warm traffic into your opt-ins under your domain. So you don't even want them to know your identity when you're doing front-end bulk mail spamming. So just layer some protection in when you do that.
Yeah. This was actually part of a network that Jess is part of.
Okay.
So they're supposed to freely be able to contact each other.
Okay.
So it's all off of a paid network, business network thing.
Okay.
That's what we were trying to mine, were all the information off of there. I don't know if that she would send everything all at once, but she's using one of the Google's tools for sending a bunch of emails.
Yeah.
So it may not flag it in the same way.
Yeah, one of the things that you can do if you're going to do any kind of bulk mail, like I don't know if you guys are aware, but within LinkedIn, you can actually export all of the email addresses for all the people that you're connected to. You can do a bulk export out of your account in LinkedIn. And you can do this out of the free account. You don't have to have a paid subscription to LinkedIn to do this. But I've done this several times. I'll export my whole list, and I have over 10,000 followers in LinkedIn. So when I export that list, we're talking about like a 10,000 person list of personal email addresses that are real. You know, when people sign up for a LinkedIn account, they use their real email address. They don't use their junk, throwaway, spam email addresses. They use their real email because they want to communicate with business owners. They want to get that mail. So it's a really good source of email addresses, getting them through LinkedIn.
Yeah, this is kind of the same way. It's
Yeah.
the same idea as LinkedIn, where people actually have their real email addresses and stuff on there. Because I noticed with that web prospector tool, we get a lot of rejects because there's a lot of bad email addresses and stuff on there. So we're trying to limit it to the amount of emails. We're only sending like 100 or so at a time,
Okay.
per day.
Yeah.
So we're not getting too hammered.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in LinkedIn, you can send the communications directly through there, but like when you have 10,000 of them, that's a little hard to do. So I import them into my bulk mail software that I run on my server, and I'll send an email out to the whole list, one shot. I'll blow the whole list out. But when I write the email, I'm very careful on how I write the email. I make it very personalized. I put their name in it. I insert their name in it in a couple of different places, so it looks like I'm talking specifically to them. And I also pose the conversation wrapped as a common ground. Like I tell them, hey, we connected on LinkedIn, and I feel bad. I just haven't had a chance to reach out to you, but I wanted to. I wanted to make the connection a little more personal and see if, maybe we can take this to a different level and have a conversation. I can tell you more about what I do. I'd love to hear more about what you do. Here's my scheduling link if you want to set up an appointment. And I'll do it that way. And it's amazing how when you do it that way, you're asking them for something, you're telling them something. It's not spammy, it's not salesy, it's not like you're trying to scam them or something. You're trying to give them as much benefit as you're getting out of it. And they're very responsive to that. Of doing it that way, I've only had one occasion where I had some woman that just flat went off on me for sending her an email to her personal email, which is the same email she uses in LinkedIn. She just flat went ballistic. And with that, she got removed from my list. She got X-nayed out. I went in and I just killed her off. I'm like, you are not someone I ever want to deal with. So that's like in Facebook, if you've got friends that are connected to you that are hostile or whatever, just get rid of them, unfriend them, cancel them, block them, get them out of your life. Don't want to deal with that stuff. But anyway, yeah, do make it very personal. I know when way back, like, probably over 20 years ago, one of the first places online where I made a lot of money was in the email portion of it. And what we would do, we would go into AOL, and AOL had the back end of their database open at the time. And you could literally mine the data out of AOL. They had millions of users and they all had profiles. So you could go in and you could cross-reference a user. And this was back before I knew how to do mail merge. So I was like totally doing it the old-fashioned way. I would go in and I bought a book of names. Like this was like how to name your baby. And it had thousands of different names in it, first names. And I would go in like with every first name I could find and then search for people that had a particular thing in their profile. Like I'd go in and I'd look for all the Bobs that had fishing in their profile. And I'd send them an email and say, hey, Bob, I'm an AOL member and I just noticed I was browsing profiles and I noticed that you're into fishing. Hey, that's some common ground. Have you seen this fish shirt over here? Really cool. You got to check it out. And I'd send them a link. I did that. I made more money doing that than you could shake a stick at. I sold golf products. I sold fishing products. I sold all kinds of stuff, my own stuff and client stuff through AOL, doing it just like that. I never got one complaint, not ever, doing it that way. But it was, it was a pain in the ass because I literally had to create a database of every person's first name and what they were interested in for me to be able to do that without getting in trouble, without getting, called out as a spammer or what have you. Now it's easy. You could just do mail merge, just say, hey, put the first name in here and away we go. But it's very effective. Email marketing, no matter how you slice it, it's a numbers game. It's just like anything else, but it is highly effective, especially if you've got the right offer. If you're doing this, if you're just doing shotgun approach, you're going to get very low conversion ratios. But if you're doing like what I was doing, like getting the people that have phishing in their profile, getting their first name and sending that person a personalized email, you get much higher conversions on that. So you should always be doing that. Find the common ground. That's exactly what a salesperson will do. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to make some observations. Like if they meet you in person, they're going to make observations. They're going to look at, depending on where they meet you, if they meet in your office, they're going to notice things in your office. If they meet at your home, they're going to know where you live. They're going to know what kind of house you live in. They're going to know if it's clean. Is it tidy? Is it a wreck? Is it a mess? Are you a good housekeeper? Is there good smells of food in the house? That means your wife's probably a good cook, or somebody's cooking. Somebody knows what they're doing. Somebody knows their way around a kitchen. It gives them something to connect and to bond and open the conversation. It's common ground. So again, I always say this, whatever works in the real world is going to work in the online world. So you have to find that common ground, or your emails are not going to be effective. Your communication's not going to be effective. So common ground is really, it's like that first thing. Yeah, you've got to grab their attention. But right after that, if you don't establish some common ground, you could potentially lose them right there before you even get a chance to create demand and desire. A good salesperson never goes into the demand and desire before they've created rapport. And that's where that common ground comes into. And think about that with your process. Think about that with your website. Is your website doing that? Is your email sequences doing that? If they're not, then you've got a weak link there. And that's where you can get really frustrated when your marketing doesn't work. You can say, oh, I spent all this money. I had X amount of people on my website, but I'm not making any sales, and you feel like a failure. It's just you're missing a piece. You're missing a piece or multiple pieces somewhere in the process. And I always say, take a step back and look at this from a reality perspective. Would this process work if we were face to face? Like if you took the exact sequence, would it work? Are you just blabbering on for hours on end without getting to a point? That doesn't work in the real world. All that does is make the person go, oh my God, somebody save me. Somebody get me out of here. Somebody interrupt this conversation, right? On the online world, it's way easier. They just hit the back button and they're gone. So you got to be really careful. If you go on too long, if you start talking in too much detail, you need to be specific. You need to talk about what's important to them. You need to be to the point. You need to be giving them actionable things that they can do to get closer to their desired outcome. That's leading them. People love to be led. If you're not leading them, if you're just blabbering about stuff, they're not going to follow. They're going to say, oh, I got way better shit to do, even if it's washing the dishes. Seriously, that's a problem in your sequence. If you've ever had a conversation with a person that they wanted to hear more, and every time you needed to leave, they wanted you to stay and they wanted more information, that's what you need to create in your marketing. Not, oh my God, I've heard enough. Okay, stop. Let's go. I got shit to do. You don't want that. If you're creating that, you got a problem. You know, they should be leaning in, wanting more, and that's the perfect time to make them an offer. That's when you say, okay, look, here's how this works. The next step is working with me. Here's how we do that. You know, the initial consultation is X, and we can spend an hour and really get deep into this. That's your tripwire. You haven't tried to sell them on the big thing yet. It's just they want to spend more time. They're leaning forward. They're interested. You've moved them down a journey they want to continue. That's a really good time to make them an offer. Once you've made them the first offer, more offers, higher offers are imminent, and they will convert like crazy because of that. You know, that's like, I can't tell you how many products in the last couple of years that I've bought for anywhere from $7 to $27. That's usually like the sweet spot for those initial offers. I can't tell you how many of those I've bought into of, you know, $13, $7, anywhere in that range, $19.95. You buy the first thing because it's a little bite-sized step of, oh, that's really awesome. It's cheap enough. It doesn't matter, you know, 20 bucks, you know, at the end of the day, I'm not going to miss it. I want to see what's under the hood here. It's worth it. And then you buy it. They give you everything they told you, plus they give you more. They give you extra stuff with it that makes it even cooler. And guess what? They give you an upsell. They're like, you know, this is really awesome that you took this step, but you could 10 times your output by just buying this other thing that goes with it that enhances it. And then, by the way, you know, you could buy a commercial license to it because this thing's going to make so much money for you. You could sell it to others and you could make a fortune, and you'll forget about selling your own thing because everyone else will want to buy this thing from you. You know, commercial license. And then the next step up from there is, oh, by the way, if you want to offer this as your own, we'll white label it for you. You can put your own name on it, and then it's your own thing. And then now you sell it as your own. And it's like you're 4 steps into an upsell, and you started out at $7, and now all of a sudden you're at 497 bucks. And it was painless, and it was an awesome experience. And you got a great deal, and you got something really cool that tomorrow, hey, you can open up the doors and you can make money. You know, you've got a really cool thing. See how that works? That's a process that works. That's a process that's always worked. You know, you bite-sized steps, bite-sized chunks to get in. So anyway, that's marketing funnels. You know, when you're putting a funnel together, that's it. You've always got to have that first thing. That lead page is your first step to getting them to communicate with you. It's your offer. It's your olive branch of, hey, I've got something really cool for you. I'd love to give it to you. And there's an exchange there. Like in the book offer, it's a free book, you pay the shipping. In a lead magnet, it's, hey, I've got this cool thing. Where do you want me to send it? The give and take is, I'm going to give you the thing, you give me your email address, and then I can send it to you. So it's always a connector. There's a common connector there, even in the free thing where there's 0 cost, or the free thing where you pay the shipping. The connector's the same. You're getting their email address so you can follow up. That's the whole point of it. That's the whole point of the first step in the marketing process, is being able to follow up based on a common goal. The person wants something, you're giving them that first thing only so you can follow up. It's an ethical bribe. That's all it is. It's just a bribe of, hey, I've got a really cool sequence here for you. I'd love to follow up. I'm pretty sure you don't have time right now, and I get it, but I'd love to follow up with you. So here's the free thing. This is my ethical bribe for me to be able to follow up with you in good time. That's a lead magnet. Now, a good lead magnet, this is often confused with what is a good lead magnet. A good lead magnet is easily and quickly consumed, giving an outcome, giving a positive outcome. That's your best lead magnet. So if you think about it, is a book really a good lead magnet? It's not. A book is probably one of the worst lead magnets ever, because if the goal of the book is to move them forward and they have to read the book to get that benefit, nobody's going to read the book. You're going to have a very low conversion ratio on your outcome of that. Now, if you're giving the book away for free just to make the connection, that's okay, but don't expect them or don't require them to read the book. The book was just an olive branch to start the communications. A lead magnet, a free lead magnet where you're not moving them to a purchase, that's the big upswing of giving them the book for the shipping, is you've changed the relationship. So there's a huge plus to that. So that's a good thing. But take the book out of the picture, take the sale out of the picture if you're trying to do a free one. Again, you're just trying to establish communication. The free lead magnet, the best thing it could be is something that's quickly consumable, not like the book. The book takes a long time to consume and it's hard. You want quick and easy. Like, here's the 3 things that you need to know to buy life insurance. Boom, boom, boom. It's a list of 3 things. You give it to them, you've got their email address. Now you have the ability to follow up. By giving them the 3 things, what you've done, they've looked at it, they consumed it. Boom, I got it. Oh shit, I need to know more. What do these 3 things really mean? How do I take advantage of those? How do I make sure? So the perfect follow-up for your first follow-up on that is, hey, I'm doing a webinar tomorrow where I'm going to cover these 3 things in great detail. And I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about each one of them. Now, you solve the first problem. They know the 3 things. Now you're going to follow up with them and you're going to go in detail so they understand the 3 things. You're going to educate them. You're going to create demand and desire. You're going to eliminate any objections in the process. And at the end of that webinar, you're going to make an offer. So that's a really good lead magnet. That's a really good sequence. And it doesn't matter how much the cost of the thing is. I've seen in a 1-hour, 2-hour webinar, I've seen items be sold for $10,000. It typically takes a little longer process to do that, but I've seen it. I've seen 1-hour webinars where a $10,000 item was sold. But you see, you got to lead them to the next step and the next step and the next step. Like, in SEO, there's all kinds of stuff that you could sell to a person that had a beginning interest in SEO. If they had a beginning interest in that, you go, the first thing is, oh, let me do a website evaluation. They put their name and email address in, they schedule an appointment. What they're doing is they're giving me their time. That's an offer. I made them an offer. They're paying me in their time. So I'm giving them my time. They're giving me their time. There's an exchange of value there. So in the free consultation, what I'm going to do, I'm going to reveal pain points. I'm going to point out all the things that I could do to solve those pain points. So again, I'm advancing them toward their outcome because I'm understanding what they really want. They don't really want SEO. They want their website to work better. They want their dollars they're spending on their online marketing to actually convert customers. So knowing that, I can now carry on a very educated conversation with them about, oh, did you know that you're missing your description tag? Do you know your titles are not really very descriptive. They're not very compelling. And when Google puts you up, let's say we did SEO, Google puts you up, if you had poor titles and descriptions, no one's going to click on you anyway. So it was a waste of time and money. Did you know that? First thing they're going to do is, well, can you fix that? Well, sure we can. Also, did you know, I just noticed, that your website has a broken security certificate. This is very common these days. Also, did you know your website's not mobile friendly? That's another thing, very common these days. A lot of people built websites 20 years ago and never updated them. They're a little out of date now. They're not secure. They're not mobile friendly. They're not responsive. When you point those things out, you're exposing a pain point that's getting in the way of what they want. So they want to eliminate the pain. It gives you huge opportunity to sell stuff, even stuff outside of what they originally came for. SEO is a big commitment. SEO is a high dollar commitment and it's a long-term commitment. So it's not ideal for me to go in and sell that as my primary target right out of the gate. I am much better off to change the relationship from the browser into the customer, do small bite-sized chunks and keep upselling them, fixing their problems along the way, advancing them toward what they want. And that's how you make a lifetime customer. That's how you really get somebody to spend a lot of money over a long period of time, by handling the relationship like that. You're building a relationship. Business is based on relationships. So if you don't build and nurture those relationships properly, you're not going to be very good in business. You're probably not going to convert. You're probably not going to keep people long term. So anyway, hopefully this stuff is helpful. It's a little different angle on the on the whole marketing conversation, but it really is based on knowing who you're talking to, what's important to them. It all boils back to that always. All right, so other questions. We'll go ahead and open up here for you guys. All right. I don't see anybody hopping out on the field here.
Hey, John.
Hey, Gwen, how's it going?
Pretty good.
All
In
right.
talking with your whole book lead magnet thing, I'm kind of caught in one of the sequences of one that I pretty popular right now. I'm kind of curious who else has heard of it. And it was Josh Turner's Connect 365. Have you heard that one?
Oh, no, I haven't heard about that one.
Oh, it started out with he's the founder for LinkedIn Selling.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up on his thing, as I was looking at them. But I've got like 3 people that are selling his thing, and it started out with the free book offer. And I didn't even take him up on that, and that rolled into come to our webinar, and now it's gone to, well, you got to get our product because this is what it is, and it's basically a personalized email sending thing.
Yeah.
Mass email sending. And so now it's including masterminds and all this other stuff. And I'm just watching it go by going, it's tempting as it gets thicker and thicker. And he's got his countdown on here and it's the last 12 hours. And I'm like going, yep, this is exactly what you're describing. I mean, point for point for point.
Yeah, exactly. That the best thing you could do is watch those guys because they're really good at this game. And a lot of times if you're doing this just as a beginner, or maybe you've been in the business a long time and you're new just to the marketing funnel process, you can learn so much by just getting in their sequences. Sign up for all their stuff, like what you're doing right now. You're watching the whole thing play out. You can learn a tremendous amount, but don't just watch the stuff passively. Watch it actively. Really, like, it was like that exercise I did on the Super Bowl. I said, I want you guys to watch the Super Bowl commercials and see if you can pick off, like, You know, what are their attention grabbers? How are they creating demand and desire? Are they eliminating any objections? How are they making their offers? You know, what are they doing and why? You can learn a lot from that stuff. You know, like in the analysis piece of ACT, one of the biggest chunks of that is competitor analysis. You know, I've got like a dossier sheet of when you're looking at a competitor, all the different stuff to pluck out of what they're doing. And it's a lot. It's a lot of stuff to look at. But really, really cool looking through like their funnel sequences, like, you know, what is their lead magnet? What's their primary promise? How are they grabbing attention on the front end? And then the process, the sequence they walk you through. And it's
and this one's well done.
Yeah, there's a lot of
and it's mainly a personalized automated email system is what he's selling. But it's got, you know, the video, the full price, and then what we're offering you for the trial, blah, blah, blah. Free 14-day trial. And it's one of those, I'm trying to watch it critically and not get sucked into it.
It's hard to not get sucked into them. I wind up doing that myself many times.
So that's what I'm looking at, going, maybe this would help. Maybe this would help.
Here's another thing. If you want to buy stuff just to see the sequence, here's a little trick. When you buy let's say you buy the $7 thing, and then after you pay for it, it goes to the thank you page, which sells you on the next upsell. Down at the very, very bottom of that page, there's a link that says no thanks. I'll take it as it is. If you right click on that link and open it in a new browser, a lot of times it'll give you a downsell of the same thing. Like let's say the first thing was $7 and then the upsell is $97. If you say no to the $97, they'll say, oh, I totally understand. It's probably a money issue. What if we remove one of the bonuses and we give this to you for $27? And then boom, you take it. You take the bait. Now they send you the thank you page for that. Now that you've got that, the next one might be more important to you, and it's $297. And then if you say no thanks to that, then they'll downsell you again. They'll go, oh, you know, again, I totally understand. But, and then they'll try and resell you on it. They'll try and reiterate the value of why you don't want to miss out on this. And then they'll offer you a special deal there. So even if you want the stuff, a lot of times you can get it cheaper that way because you can take full advantage of all the discounts. And if they don't give you a discount and you still want it, then you can always go back to the first page and just buy it the regular price. But I can almost guarantee you, if you say no thanks, they're going to give you a better deal. So
sometimes they do. And then I've had some that I did that and I bought it at the lower price and it was pretty much useless because they took everything that was working out of it.
Yeah,
then
well,
you got kind of the basic template and you could possibly get an email, but then that was about it.
Yeah, what I've found, if that was the case, the bigger one was probably worthless too, and you just bought something worthless for less.
That could be.
Yeah, any time the thing is of any value, even the downsell will be of a decent value.
Okay, well then I bought some junk.
Yeah, you paid less for the junk too, so
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you're gonna buy junk, you want to spend the least amount on it.
Yes.
But that's a good trick, that right click on the no thanks button and then open the next one in a new window. So that way you've got them both. You can always go back and take the offer if you want to. But it allows you to blow through their entire funnel and evaluate it before you decide if you really want to buy into all this stuff. Like, you can actually figure out, okay, what is the $7 thing really going to cost me? And, you know, by buying the $7 thing, you can open up all those windows and you can see, okay, well, you know, this and this and this piece, they make sense, and it's not a $7 item. Now I know it's a $297 for all the bells and whistles I want. So that's just kind of a good trick when you're looking through funnels. There's another product too, and I've got it in the resource area in the ACT program. I don't remember what it was called, but it's something SPY, Funnel SPY maybe. And what Funnel SPY will do, if you put in the beginning URL of the funnel, it will go and it will dig up all the back pages, so you can evaluate a funnel from a competitor's perspective. And you can see, you know, all of their bump offers, all their thank you pages. You can kind of get an X-ray vision without even buying the front end piece. So that's kind of a cool little product. So anyway, tomorrow we're doing our ACT Live again. This will be the second time in a very short time. I've been doing a lot of these events here at the house where we just do them with a small group. And there's 2 new events coming up that I've just released for this year. And if you guys, well, I know none of you guys have been to these because they're brand new, but I would really encourage you to come to all 3. If you haven't been to the first one, if you haven't been to a 2-day ACT Live, it's really, really good to set your foundation. Really like a 2-day deep dive with me on figuring out your market segmentation, figuring out how to really look and think about business before you get in and get messy. And then how to identify the avatar and the real conversation that needs to take place with them, what's really important to them, and then how to put that into the creation process. Typically, we don't get a lot into traffic on the 2-day ACT. We cover it just briefly at the end, but it's more important to focus on the real foundational, the analysis, the creation piece. And the second live event that we're doing, I'm calling it Funnel Camp. And it's basically, it's the next step. It's like once you've got all that stuff under your belt, it's how do you actually put a funnel together? And I know for a lot of our apprentices, I'm helping you guys do that. I'm walking you through the funnel process and all that. But for everyone else, that 2-day funnel camp will be a real eye-opener for all the pieces. There's a lot of moving parts behind a funnel that really make it go. You can do a simplistic funnel. I mean, you can do a landing page, a thank you page, and a follow-up email sequence to another sales page. That's the most simplistic funnel that I know of. You can even do like a 1-page sales funnel, that, you know, if that's all your goal is. But the whole funnel process, it can get really complex. And the more layers of complexity you add to it, the more valuable it becomes. You don't have to have all that stuff to begin with. The most important thing is just to get one up, get one in place, and then be able to add to it. And what I've always told my customers from 25 years back when I first started in on the online space, I said, here's what you want to do. You want to take the next customer that you have, and you want to treat them like they're the last customer you're ever going to get. How would you treat them? How well would you communicate with them? And I want you to do that. I want you to document it. Every email you send them, every page you send them to, I want you to document all that stuff and put it together into a follow-up sequence so the next person that comes in, they get the same experience. It's the experience as though this is going to be your last customer ever, and you need to keep them for life. You're going to treat them like gold, and you automate that process. So everyone that ever comes into your funnel from then on gets that spectacular experience. And that's just layering things in. When you have your initial funnel, you can go back and you can layer in a follow-up sequence. You could layer in, another offer. Say it's a month down the road. Once this person's finished their timeline and a new timeline starts, that's a perfect place to spark up a new campaign. You're just adding another layer to it. another level. You can put in there, you know, hey, let's send a video out, and if they watch the video, then we're going to send them over here. If they don't watch the video, we're going to send them another video. We're going to send them, we're going to keep sending them stuff till we can move them to action. And you have the ability to do all that stuff with a funnel in Kartra. It has a lot of advanced automations that you can use. You don't have to use, but every layer of that you add into your funnel adds value to your funnel, adds value to your business, adds cash flow to your business, adds longevity to your client relationship. It's so valuable to add that stuff in, even if it takes you years to do it. As long as you're moving forward, you just continue to add and add and add. And again, it doesn't even have to be your products. It could just be some, you know, affiliate offer. But same thing, you're providing that spectacular experience for that person. So, all right, anything else before we wrap up? Oh, and the third one, so that's Funnel Camp. The third one is Traffic Camp. That's going to be a 2-day dive strictly on traffic sources. It's going to be not just SEO. Yeah, we're going to talk about SEO. We're also going to talk about a lot of different paid ad sources. We're going to talk about free ad sources. We'll talk about some ways to drive traffic that you probably haven't heard of. There's a lot of different ways to drive traffic. So yes, I do have the dates. I will send those out to everybody again. If you check your emails, I sent an email out probably a couple or 3 weeks ago that announced the new dates, and there's a page up for you guys. So I'll send another one out, and you guys can get all the dates of what's coming up. And I really, really would, if you haven't been through the first one, I would encourage you to go through the first one. If you've already been through that, I would definitely follow up with the Funnel Camp and then the Traffic Camp. And if you can, do them in the right order. Do the base one first, and then followed by Funnel Camp, and then Traffic Camp on the end. Again, you do them out of sequence, they're not going to be of maximum benefit to you. All right, guys, that's it for the week. I'm going to wrap up, and we'll talk to you guys next week.